Welcome back. I hope chapter 14 went well with you. Hope you had a pretty good chapter there. Keep in mind that no matter what you do, if you have any confusion, make sure you contact an instructor. Now we're going to start chapter 15. Chapter 15 is all on fillet weld symbols. Before we get started on the symbols themselves, I wanted to show you how to actually measure a fillet weld first. When we talk about a fillet weld size, we're always talking about a triangle. So for example, we're measuring this fillet weld, we're going to measure this triangle right in there. Here's the triangle that we're going to measure. So we're going to measure this leg of the triangle and this leg of the triangle. Now that would be, now it changes when we talk about convex, concave, and flat fillet welds. This one here is actually the convex. The symbol for that is kind of a triangle. Keep in mind that my vertical leg is always on the left-hand side. So this would be for a convex. We're still going to measure this distance here. Whatever it may be, might be a ½ inch, might be a ¼ inch. So those are the dimensions that we are going to use to measure that weld. Now, flat. That's going to be the same. That means our contour is being changed now. Now our contour is going to be like this. We're still going to measure this triangle. That's the whole thing about a fillet weld, measuring a triangle. That's why that symbol is a triangle. So as we move into concave, things get a little different. Now my contour looks like this. That's my concave fillet weld. How do we measure that? Because now we don't have a perfect triangle. To measure that fillet weld, you're still measuring a triangle, but now we're measuring it from here. Now our dimensions go from this side, right here. Here would be the dimension that we were measuring. All this right in here is not included into the weld size of that fillet weld. So depending on if it's a concave, flat, or convex fillet weld, we're still measuring the legs of that triangle. Alright, let's break this down a little more now. Now as you start looking into the symbol itself, we kind of went through it a little bit. Here's our T-joint. Let's put a symbol in here. Let's put an arrow side. Let's go a ½ inch. Fillet weld, arrow side. Now keep in mind, right here's where our weld's going to go. We kind of went over this already a little bit in the previous unit. Now, if there are no dimensions to the right, that means that weld is welded continuously until the end of the joint. So there's nothing to the right of that fillet weld symbol, so that's what they call a continuous fillet weld. No dimension to the right, it's welded the whole way. How does it look like from the top view? That means that weld is one side is welded all the way. Here's my weld. Continuous fillet weld. There's no dimension to the right side of that fillet weld. Now we can break this in. There's basically 4 different types of fillet welds that you're going to be doing. The next one is going to be what they call a chain intermittent fillet weld. Here's my T-joint. Now keep in mind, we can have it on both sides. I'm just going to keep it simple, go arrow side. Let's go a ½ inch. And then let's say 2 inch by 4 inches. What does that mean now? Now this means, this is what they call an intermittent fillet weld. We're still on one side. Now Our weld lengths are 2 inches and they're on 4-inch pitch. So what does that look like from the top view? For example, here's my fillet weld. So now we have 2-inch weld lengths, all on one side. Here's my weld, here's my weld, here's another weld. Arrow side. What do the dimensions mean? That means the length of this weld is 2 inches from here to there. Same here. This is 2 inches. Same here. 2 inches. What does the 4 mean? The 4 means that we're on 4-inch pitch. Dimension between. And that goes from center to center. Center to center of those welds. So now we have what they call intermittent fillet weld. Still have 1/2-inch fillet weld size. Length is 2 inches. Pitch is 4. We can do both sides. When you see something that looks like this, notice my fillet weld symbols are directly above each other. We'll go 2, 4, keep things the same. Now that means the other side, the welds are right on opposite sides of each other. Still have 4 or 2-inch weld lengths, and then 4-inch pitch. Still have that 4-inch pitch between welds. So that's what they call intermittent, or this one's actually called chain intermittent, because they're directly on opposite sides of each other. So we talked about continuous, intermittent, chain intermittent. Now we're going to discuss what they call staggered intermittent. What is staggered? Let's draw a T-joint looking from the top view. Let's get a leader line. 2-4. Let's still stick with a 1/2 inch. Now, you notice my fillet weld symbols are not lined up. What does that mean? Well, that means they're staggered. Staggered intermittent. We still have 1/2 inch weld side. Which one goes first? Whichever one is closest to the arrow goes first. So our arrow side weld would go first. So we have 2-inch, 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 2-inch. Still have 2 inches for our weld length. 4-inch pitch. So we still have 2 inches. Here, 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 and we still have 4-inch pitch from center weld to center weld. That's still going to be 4 inches. So we started on arrow side, primarily because it's closest to arrow. Now we're going to do the other side. This is where things change a little bit. They're staggered. So you notice they are not completely right on the opposite side of each other. So this is what they call a staggered intermittent fillet weld. Everything still applies. We still have 2-inch, 2-inch, 2-inch weld length, and we also still have 4-inch on pitch, center to center. Same here. That's still going to be 4 inches. So everything still applies. We still have 1/2 inch weld side, staggered intermittent. You notice the fillet weld symbols do not line up. So we went through a continuous, and I'm going to draw all these on the board. so you can see the difference. Continuous fill weld. They're just welded all the way. It can be both sides, does not matter. This is not all the way around, don't get that confused with all the way around. So first one is continuous. Second one, intermittent. That's where our welds. Whatever it may be, it might be 3-inch weld length, 6-inch pitch. Second one's intermittent. Notice intermittent's only one side of the joint. Then we also have chain intermittent. I'm going to just do a color so you can see it a little better. That's where these welds are directly on the other side of each other. That's chain. And then we have staggered. Just follow that reference line, interpret what it's trying to tell you. So they're staggered. Intermittent. Be sure you understand these. If you do not, make sure you contact your instructor. Your test, you're going to have to determine what it is by the symbol. So we got continuous, intermittent, chain intermittent, staggered intermittent. I'll give you short examples of what the reference line actually looks like. Like I said, this could be arrow side, other side, does not matter. Intermittent, it's only one side. Notice I'm drawing the fill welds correctly. That vertical is always on the left-hand side. We'll use 1/2 inch again. Let's say 2-4. Here's an example of this symbol. 1/2 inch both sides. 2-4. 2-4. Notice the symbols are directly lined up. Then we have staggered. Now the symbols do not line up. Make sure you can determine which one is which. Always keep in mind, like I said from chapter 14, anything to the left of that symbol is always the weld size. Anything to the right is the length and pitch. So for example, our length of our weld here is 2, pitch is 4, same as this one, same as this one. So make sure you can determine the difference between these 4 types of fill weld. Now as we keep moving on, you can have a combination weld symbol for fill welds. We really haven't talked about that quite yet. What I mean by a combination fill weld is that we can actually have a double. What does that look like? And we can also have a root opening too. So here's my symbol coming in. Let's go bevel. Then we can put a fillet weld over top of it. You can also have a fillet weld other side. Now keep in mind, when we're talking about groove welds here, we can always have a root opening still can apply here, angle, whatever it may be. So that's what we got going on. Anything on the left side here, we're still talking weld size. For example, 1/2 inch fillet weld, 1/2 inch fillet weld. Everything will follow that same format we already talked about. But this is what they call a combination symbol. There's a couple different ways we can write that. So what does this mean? We're going to fill this bevel in first, because that is closest to the arrow. That bevel is closest. And then we can put a fillet weld over the top of that bevel. And then one on the other side. So everything's still following the format we talked about in chapter 14. Size to the left, length, pitch to the right. And even if we have a bevel before putting a fillet weld in, all that stuff can apply. You can have your root opening in there yet. You can have your degree, whatever it may be. So everything will still apply. Once you get that format down, this class will be a lot simpler. That's what they call a combination fillet. Now we can write that two different ways. Here I put the symbol directly above or below the first symbol. That's, like I said, you follow that format. Whatever's closest to the arrow, that bevel is closest to the arrow, that's done first. You can write this a couple different ways. For example, we can have two reference lines. Still have our bevel, 1/8 inch, 45 degree. We even have depth of prep in here. Depth of prep, let's say it's 1/2 inch. Weld size could be 5/8, whatever it may be. So then our next reference line here, fillet weld, fillet weld. Keep in mind, this reference line is closest to the arrow, so this one is done first, this one is done second. So whatever is closest to that arrow always goes first. Even on your staggered intermittent, whatever symbol is closest, it might be arrow side, other side, whatever symbol is closest to that arrow we do first. So hopefully that clears a few things up. Now, this symbol here, we can also put a crook in the arrow. For example, we bring that down, point it up like that. Whatever that crook in the arrow is pointing to, that is determining what side gets beveled. We'll get more into that when we get into our groove welds, because you're going to be doing that a lot with your groove welds. We start getting into J grooves, flare bevels, and your bevels. That little crook in the arrow is telling me what side the bevel goes on. So, hopefully that cleared up a lot of the different types of fillet welds. Next year it's all groove welds. We'll get more and more into it. Follow that formatting. Size is to the left, length, pitch is to the right. Because you're going to be testing on it. And keep in mind, everything on that fillet weld symbol, that vertical line, is always on the left-hand side. That is correct. In the test, they actually flip these around to look like that. These are not symbols. These are, because that vertical is on the left-hand side. Size of the weld to the left, length, pitch to the right. We can also have our contours in here, flat, convex, concave, whatever it may be. So kind of follow that formatting. Closest to the arrow goes first, left, right. Make sure you understand. Our next unit will be groove welds. Hopefully this unit goes very well. Like I said, if you ever have any questions, make sure you contact your instructor.